Hello and welcome back. In today's video, I want to build a machine that I've been wanting to make ever since I got this case right here. So this is going to be housing our machine, and this is going to be a Windows Millennium build from around 2000 with completely period inaccurate parts, because this is basically going to be the fastest Windows 9X machine I've ever built. Originally I had a different vision for this machine. I wanted to put a LGA775 motherboard in there with a Pentium 4. But I was looking at this sticker right here, this old Celeron sticker, and I thought it would be kind of fun to make it into a Celeron machine. However, I don't want to put a Celeron D in there because that would be a disaster. So instead, we can actually do something different. The CPU is still going to be named Celeron, but yeah, you'll see. This case is not in the greatest shape, but the main reason I wanted to make it into a Windows Millennium machine is because check this out. We have an original Windows Millennium Edition sticker on the back with the serial key for the installation. So it's awesome. I've never had something like this. I've never had something as old as a Windows Millennium sticker. I think the newest would have been maybe Windows XP on a case. And while Windows Millennium gets a lot of hate, it's actually kind of a pretty alright operating system. It's a lot like Windows 98 with a lot of things fixed. And while in Windows 98 you could use VXD drivers, which are a lot faster, or WDM, Windows Millennium only supports WDM drivers, which are more reliable. However, they could be a little bit slower. But it's not going to be an issue because we'll be putting in a fairly fast CPU. I mean, pretty much the fastest CPU I've ever used for a Windows 98 build. I also kind of want to sort of theme this build towards one game in particular that I've been itching to play again. Now, a lot of the times when I make a video on a computer, I play a ton of games, just test them all out, but I don't really feel like it right now. I think it'd be much more interesting to just focus on one game, but I will particularly check out maybe one or two more games other than that. But I don't want to play like 10, 20 games, just to showcase this machine. I think it'd be much more interesting to just focus on one game in particular, and that is going to be Max Payne. A couple of years ago, I've actually played through Max Payne, and it was a very interesting experience because I played through on my old Pentium 3 machine. At the time, I think it still had a Celeron in it, potentially. So it was a Socket 370 Celeron machine, 1 GHz, with a, I think, GeForce FX 5200. So it wasn't a fully smooth experience, but it was perfectly playable. However, recently I tried playing the game again on one of my more common hardware configurations, and that is a Pentium 4 with a Radeon 9600. And pretty much that is the maximum performance I've ever seen out of Windows 98. Never had anything faster than that for 98, so I always wanted to kind of build an LGA775 build for Windows 98, and I decided to do that just now. So the basis of the build is going to be, not that, but this motherboard right here. It's a little bit out of frame, let me bring it closer. So what is this motherboard? This is a LGA965P DS3 from Gigabyte. So it's a Intel 965 chipset. Should be compatible with Windows 98, if all goes well. I've never tried anything like this before, so we shall see how it goes. And for the processor, I'm actually going to go with a Celeron. I mean, it's not exactly a Celeron, it's only Celeron in name. But we're going to be using this right here. So we're going to be using this Celeron E3400, so it's basically a low-end Core 2 Duo CPU. It's definitely the fastest CPU I've ever used in Windows 9X operating systems. What I also really like about the CPU is that the Core 2 Duos are sort of like the continuation of Pentium 3s. You know, Intel went back from the Pentium 4 to Pentium 3 technology to develop the Core 2 Duo. And it's so cool. It's basically a really, really fast Pentium 3. I mean, this is only like 2.6 gigahertz. Even at that frequency, it's going to blow any Pentium 4 out of the water. And not only that, we're going to be maybe slightly overclocking this as well. This motherboard is capable of some overclocking. I genuinely only really like to do stock voltage overclock nowadays because, back in the day they gave you way too much voltage to play with out of the factory. So you could do a lot even on stock voltages without having to raise it too much. But this is a 45 nanometer chip, so it's one of the later Core 2 Duo bases with 1 megabyte of cache, and it's a dual core, so we're only going to be using one core, and it will have 1 megabyte cache available. So that's already, you know, double the 2 Alatin Pentium 3s, and at way faster speeds. And I don't really have a lot of DDR2 sticks, so for the installation I'm going to be using this 256 megabyte stick, which we will later upgrade to 2 gigabytes. But that also means I'm going to have to install a sort of a memory fix for Windows Millennium, because all 9X operating systems sort of max out at 512 megabytes. I wish I had another 256 stick so I could populate it, but oh well. And I do want dual channel, so we're going to be going with 2 gigs in dual channel with the 9X fix, because I only have 2 identical 1 gigabyte sticks. I don't have another 256. And we're going to be using this cooler right here for now. We'll see if it's going to work out well. I mean, this is a 45 nanometer low power CPU, so this very basic 775 cooler should work fine. I'm not going to showcase the process of applying thermal paste and installing the cooler, because you know why. So change of plans. I'm actually going with this big copper cooler heatsink, because turns out the stock Intel cooler has a broken, one of the pins are broken. So alright, let's get this into the case and then we'll go from there. Alright, first things first, let's pop in the original I/O shield in here. It's a very nice, fancy, colored I/O shield, so it's definitely a bit of a modern motherboard, but like I said, we're not going for period accuracy. This is going to be kind of a low power consumption Windows 9X machine, which I could definitely use some, because yeah, all those Pentium 4s are using a lot of power and heating up quite a bit. Alright, I think that's in there good. So let's put the motherboard in there. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be putting on the heatsink yet. I don't really have a fan for it that fits on it perfectly, because I think this is one of those old horrific Fujitsu heatsink designs where I believe the power supply fan is supposed to cool the, like there's a duct coming down on top of the heatsink, and then the power supply fan just sucks hot air into the power supply, cooking itself. It's a horrible design. So I mean, I have a couple fans. I'll probably just try to mount something on top of it, and we'll see. I don't think we'll need a lot of cooling, because like I said, this is a low power CPU and that's a very heavy heatsink, so we'll see how it goes. Alright, so I've fastened the motherboard in the case, and I have done the boring wiring part for the front panel, and now you must be wondering, what kind of video card are we going to be using? So like I said, when I tried running Max Payne on the 9600 Pro machine recently, it didn't run as well as I'd hoped. Despite it being a 2001 game, it was actually struggling. My 9600 Pro was struggling with the game. And the 9600 Pro is from around 2003, but it's a mid-range card. And it was running fine at 60 FPS constant at 800 by 600, but if I went up to 1024 by 768 or 1280 by 1024, it was dropping frames like crazy. We were going down to 30 in 1280 by 1024. So that surprised me. And I wanted a video card that can definitely run this game solid 60 FPS at 1280 by 1024, and I think this is my best bet. So this is a GeForce GT 6600, and I got it wrong because it's a 6600 GT. That's before they messed up the naming conventions for the NVIDIA cards. So this is actually my original 6600 GT from 2006. And so I think this is like the best bet we have, and this is actually the fastest Windows 98 compatible card I have. And this has seen very little use because, I mean, I got it in 2006 and then I already replaced it in 2008. So it's basically been used for 2 years, and that's about it. It's a 256 megabyte version as well, so that's awesome. So that's what's going in there. It's a very fast card, and it's perfect for Windows 98. Well, not perfect, but, you know, it's one of the fastest NVIDIA cards in there, but, you know, drivers are probably going to be a bit problematic. We'll see. At least most games should work, I think. Like Max Payne is going to be fine. and the other game I have planned. So there we go. The card is in there. Okay. And this one doesn't require any extra power connectors either, so that's awesome. But yeah, let's screw in a screw to the bracket to hold it in place. However, we have a little bit of an alignment issue here, so I need to push the bracket a little bit against the case. And I think that should be good enough. I think the card is in there solid, hopefully. Okay. Alright. So for now, I'm not even sure if this is going to work properly. Everything's going to work properly with Win9X. So I'm going to not put in a new sound card because I will see if the onboard one will work for us. Windows Millennium doesn't really have the DOS backend. You could enable it through trickery, but this was my idea with this is I mainly want this to be a Windows machine. So eventually I might put in a different sound card in another video, or maybe later, I'm not sure. But for now, we're just going to try the onboard audio and see how it sounds in Windows Millennium. So I got a couple fan options here. For now, I just put on this, it's a 9cm Delta fan, 600 milliamps. I think this is the fan I had on there previously. This motherboard, I was going to use it for a different project, but I kind of lost interest in that, so I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. That fan is from some OEM build, I'm not sure what kind of computer anymore. And for our power needs, I'm going to be using this Dell ATX power supply that I had laying around. This is a much more modern one, but I mean, it's going to be perfectly adequate for this machine. I'm not even sure what kind of Aero this is, because I thought the more modern Dell ATX power supplies, I mean ATX case power supplies would be sort of unique, like a custom proprietary design, but this one is just like straight up ATX, so I don't even know what kind of machine this is from, but I just got them in a bundle and they're all ATX, so I'm gonna use one of these. Here's the CPU power, which is actually gonna be kind of tricky to plug in like this. I should have done that before I put in the power supply itself. Okay. Alright, plugged it in. We have the CPU power plugged in. It's a very short cable for this, but it works. Alright. Oh, I'd like that cable to not be pinched in there. Okay, there we go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and screw in our power supply into place. Alright, the power supply is in place. And for our disk drive, since this motherboard actually has a SATA connector, in fact it has 6 of them, I'm going to be using SATA, and we'll be using an old 40GB Western Digital hard drive, which does happen to be SATA. So later on I might install some more hard drives, but for now 40GB is going to be adequate. I'd probably only go for more drives if I end up making this into a multi-boot machine, perhaps, at one point. Okay. Alright, hard drive is in there. So I'm going to be using this red SATA cable because it's faster. And I'm not quite sure which SATA connector I should use. There are 2 connectors labeled 0 and 1. So, and one connector is purple, the other one is yellow or orange. I guess I'll plug it into the orange one, orange 0. Other one might be a RAID controller, I'm not sure. Obviously we won't be using RAID, so it's whatever. Okay, And, well, we're going to be using the ID standard, not AHCI. And there we go. So this power supply only comes with SATA power connectors, but thankfully I purchased these handy little adapters that convert SATA into Molex. So we're going to be able to use an ID disk drive here. And I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to be using yet. The case is beige, so it would sort of make more sense to use a beige drive. Actually, I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of running low on them. But I'm going to try to use the disk drive that it came with. Originally, this case came with this Samsung disk drive. It's a DVD burner. And Samsung burners are pretty bad, but they work fine as DVD drives, so that's what I'm going to do with it. And I'm assuming, I'm not sure how to jumper this. I'm guessing it's going to be master. No, I'll make it slave, I guess. I don't know. Doesn't really matter because it's only going to be the only drive. It's going to be the only drive on this. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll make it master for now, and then we'll see. I have to rejumper it if I plan on adding an ID hard drive to this. But yeah, okay, I'll make it master. So we're going to be hooking this up, and that way we get the CD audio pass through. You don't get that with SATA drives. And SATA hard drives should work though. I mean, from what I can tell, you shouldn't really bother with that if you have a VIA chipset, but it's an Intel chipset, so I'm hoping it's going to work just fine. And when I say that I'm running low on disk drives, what I mean is I'm running low on disk drives I want to use in old computers, because I mean a lot of these I have a lot of DVD burners, but I don't want to sacrifice them as an old Windows 9X machine disk drive. I want to use them for burning CDs. But I don't feel too bad about using a Samsung drive for such an occasion. So I guess I'm going to have to do a little test run here. My desk is an absolute mess, but yeah, this is the test monitor I'm using. Obviously, I don't have to say that I did reapply the thermal paste on the 6600 GT. And if you want to see how much thermal paste I use and what kind of pattern I put on there and what brand of thermal paste I've used, well, you're out of luck. I guess it also wouldn't hurt to hook up a good old ID cable to the disk drive, because I don't think it's going to be able to communicate through telepathy or Bluetooth. I'm not sure. Despite there not being a lot of options for any sort of cable management, this turned out to be a very tidy looking setup with not a lot of cables around. This is quite nice, probably partially due to the Dell power supply not having very long cables. I knew it looked too good to be true. I forgot to hook up the CD audio cable, of course, so that goes from the disk drive over there all the way down there. Ugh, horrible. Alright, I think it's the moment of truth. I've got everything hooked up. I got the power supply plugged in, we got video, and I have hooked up a keyboard, so let's see what happens. Smoke test! It turned on. Very nice. Everything's spinning. Awesome. I'm not actually sure if that memory stick works. Okay, we're not getting video. I'm gonna try and reseat the memory stick. Alright, I've cleaned our memory stick. Let's see if anything changes. And I've reseated it. Everything else seems fine. Oh, there we go. That's all it took. A bit of cleaning. There we go. Nice. Awesome. Speaker's working. Very nice. Okay, let's take a look at things here. What's going on here? Alright, we got the hard drive Oh my god, there's 6 channels. That's pretty crazy, actually. It's got 6 channels of IDE stuff. All right, that's pretty awesome. So wait a sec, is it actually like automatically using IDE for the hard drives? All right, so hard disk priority is fine. First boot device should be the CD though, because we're going to be installing Windows Millennium Edition on here. I think I'm going to use my usual strategy of creating 2 partitions on this. Oh wow. So this motherboard, I can't believe this motherboard is so new, even though it's a 965 chipset. It even supports the NX bit, which a lot of other motherboards don't. So that's actually super modern. I really hope everything's going to be fine for Windows Millennium Edition. Hopefully it's going to be alright. USB keyboard support. I guess I can enable it. SATA, okay, good. So AHCI is disabled. Port 01 native mode. What does that mean? Native IDE mode. Well, it's either native ID or legacy ID. And which 0 and 1? Because there's actually 2 zeros and 1s. I don't know. I'll just leave it as is for now. I think it was on disabled. Okay, and Azalea codec, right? So, not sure about that audio. Audio might not work. We'll see. I don't think we need Ethernet. And we don't need... Okay, SATA devices on ID, very good. Onboard serial port, we should turn that off. Okay. I mean, we don't need all of the IDs, all of the SATA stuff, but for now I'm just going to leave it as it is and we'll see how it works. It should be fine. Okay. Can we look at the CPU? Okay, we have a fail on vCore. I'm not sure what that means. Huh. CPU temperature is 19 Celsius. That is crazy. Smart fan control. I think we want legacy, because this is only a 3-pin fan I put on there. Smart fan control mode. I think... Wait a sec. Oh, I don't know actually which one is the one that will control it properly. I think I want voltage. Yeah. What is RQST? I don't even know what all this is. Okay, we'll leave it on legacy for now. Yeah. We don't have any other fans, just the CPU fan in there, so... Okay. I might install some more... Although... the back of this computer has, like, no openings for a fan, pretty much. So it'd have to be a front panel fan. I don't think I'm installing any other fans. It's fine. It's gonna be alright. It's not gonna be a hot machine. Alright. I kind of want it to be quiet as well. Here we go. Wait a sec. It's already overclocking the CPU. What the heck? Huh. That's interesting. CIA too. Oh my goodness. So it's already overclocked, weirdly enough. It's supposed to be 2.6 gigahertz, I believe, not 2.7. That's odd. It doesn't even tell me what kind of CPU this is. I mean, I know what it is. Unless I put in the wrong one, but I don't think I did. Because I also have some E5400s that are 2.7. Wait a second. Wait, I have 2 of these Celerons? I just found another Celeron, but I'm pretty sure I put in the right one. Well, we'll check it out later. I really hope I put in the right CPU. But I'm pretty sure I did. Didn't I? Now I'm questioning myself. Why is this... This is not right. Did I put in the wrong CPU? Oh my goodness. I need to see some kind of program that can tell me what kind of CPU this is. Why isn't this telling me what kind of CPU we have? Okay. Whatever. I mean, the BIOS should be able to tell me once we reboot. Let's see, I'm gonna be able to pause this hopefully, and we can see what kind of CPU we have. Show me the post screen. Yes, okay. Why the heck was it running at 2.7? That gave me a heart attack. I thought I was an idiot and put in the wrong CPU, even though I was showing it. Because I also have a 2.7 gigahertz one. Interesting. So I'm gonna start overclocking right away, I think. Or should I? I suppose it can't hurt to mess around with it a little bit. So what I want to do is, I think we're fine temperature-wise, so I can do whatever I want with the... Oh, okay, now the V-core is fine as well. Interesting. So let me see the settings here, because something's not quite right here. I'm gonna go ahead and tweak things here a little bit. Why is it running at that speed? It's so weird. There's like a fine-tuned clock ratio you can just change there. That's so crazy. Oh, look, and see, you can even go down to 1.2. So like if you ever need less performance, you can even do that. That's so awesome. But I like big numbers, big performance, so let's go with that. And I suppose we're gonna have to... Okay. Yeah, it's at 100. That should be 200. Okay, wait a sec. So we want... See, this... I think PCI Express should be at 100, right? I believe so. So we don't want that on auto. And yeah, let's see. So it's at least 200 for sure. And I think, let's see. So if I go up to 1066, oh, you can even change the multiplier. I'm not sure what kind of RAM this is. Like, I don't know what the frequency of this is. I need to take a picture of it so I can see what the sticker says, because I can't see it from here. Ooh, okay, looks like we have a 533 megahertz RAM. That definitely not going to keep that in there, just doing it for the installation. So we're going to have to run it at like very low speeds here, 2x pretty much. And it looks like we can go as far as 266, perfect. So 3.6 gigahertz with a 1066 FSB. I think that would be pretty awesome. The question is, can we pull it off on stock voltage? 3.6 is a lot. As you can see, we can tweak the voltages as we please, but yeah, I'm curious. We could technically go down to 3.46 as well. That'll be a safer bet, I think. Let's start with 3.46. See what happens. No voltage changes or anything like that. Let's just see if it boots. But yeah, I used to back in the day tweak the voltage as well for overclocking, and I still do for some builds, but for something like this, I'm not going to do that. I think I kind of want it to be still relatively low power consumption. Looks like it's working. Still want it to be relatively low power consumption, and so, yeah. Looks like it booted up just fine. We could try 3.6. I mean, why not? But before I do that, I think what we're gonna do is, I have here a UBCD I can plug in, and then we can take a look at the stability of our machine. There's mem test as well, but there's also sort of a prime test CPU load test, so that's what I'm gonna run on this, and then we'll see how it goes. I need to put my camera on a charger anyways. Alright, so as expected, I ran into some problems with the aforementioned Samsung DVD burner. Yeah, it is what it is. For now I just plugged in a different one. I'll have to search for a beige disk drive for this machine. I really wanted to use that Samsung, but it's having a hard time reading CDs, so oh well. And I have very professionally and very elegantly zip-tied the fan to the CPU heatsink, and it's cooling the motherboard as well around it a little bit, because it's that type of heatsink, and the fan is kind of overhanging a little bit as well. Video card is working great, and currently I'm using the CD drive so I can run UBCD, because for some reason this machine doesn't want to boot off of a USB stick. So yeah, we're running Mersenne Prime Test on the CPU at 3.6 gigahertz, and it looks like it's happy at 3.6. So this is how absolutely insane CPUs were back in the day, when you could just pretty much take a CPU and they would overvolt it out of the factory so much that you could essentially add an extra gigahertz to it and it wouldn't complain. That is absolutely insane. It also helps that the FSB is only 800 megahertz, so we could go up to 1066 at 3.6 gigahertz, and yeah, it's working great so far. The other option would be to undervolt it. It's a bit more tricky. You have to kind of tweak the settings till you get to that point where it's, you know, fully stable, but that can be a tricky endeavor. So what I like to do is just, you know, get some more performance out of it. I mean, this thing at 3.6 gigahertz, I mean, not only is that faster than any Pentium 4 I've ever had, but it's also like way higher IPC, so it's gonna blow those out of the water. This is gonna be super fast, and with that GPU, I think we have a good chance of running Max Payne pretty smoothly. And the sticker doesn't lie. It is a Celeron, even though Mersenne does lie. It says it's a Pentium 4, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. So yeah, the machine is working. So what I'm gonna do now is, I guess I'll partition my hard drive and then I'll start installing Windows Millennium on here. So this is kind of where the fun part ends. Building the computer was nice, but what came after was a couple, well, more like several hours of pain and suffering of a disaster of trying to install Windows on this machine. And I'd like to emphasize that this is not the fault of Windows Millennium. I've used Windows Me, as one of my retro PCs has Windows Millennium on it, and it had it for years, and I've had not many issues at all with it. In fact, probably less than with Windows 98. But it turns out there's something wrong with this motherboard, and it's not just that it's too new for Windows Millennium or whatever. There's just something seriously wrong with this. It took me a long time to be able to format the hard drive with some kind of utility so I could start installing Windows Millennium, but even once I got there, I could not install Windows Millennium because the installer would crash. In fact, I wouldn't even be able to boot into Windows XP. Mini Windows XP or XP installer would just give me a blue screen of death claiming that my PC is not ACPI compliant. This is incredibly confusing because a couple years ago is the last time I've used this motherboard, and at the time I had Windows 10 installed on it and it worked perfectly fine. So over the years it must have developed some kind of a problem, some kind of a fault, and there's not much I can do about that. In fact, this whole ACPI non-compliantness kind of makes some sense because for whatever reason the computer thinks it's not an ATX computer. In fact, when I get to shut down the computer, I actually have to hold down the power button instead of just, you know, soft pressing it, because it's a soft press power button in this case. I have to hold it down to shut down the computer, kind of like an old school machine. And there's no way to turn on ACPI compatibility. The motherboard just assumes that it's on. And I've gone through every single BIOS setting, so nothing you can recommend me will actually fix it. So what transpired is that I, in the end, was able to install Windows Millennium with the Windows Me Quick Install, because it sort of just skips through a couple of things that the Millennium installer would normally look at and would freeze the computer. Mainly I believe if I had the non-PCI drivers and the checking for non-PCI devices, yeah, if I had that enabled in the Windows Millennium Quick Install, then it would still freeze. But if I had that off, then with the quickest Quick Install, it was able to install Windows Millennium just fine. And it also, I installed it with 2 gigabytes of RAM, so it already put on the RAM patch by Rudolph Lowe. But yeah, so Quick Install is the only way I could put on Windows Millennium Edition. Could not even use the product key on the back of the machine, unfortunately. I was able to install all the drivers. I could not find drivers for the sound card, so I ended up putting in a Sound Blaster 128 PCI in the end. And the machine seems to be working. Not exactly what I was hoping to achieve, but at least the computer was working. And I was able to run a couple games. exactly a couple games because I tried out Midtown Madness, which is it's basically the best performance I've seen from a Windows 9X machine. Runs really great. And of course, the star of the show, which is Max Payne, which is why I built this machine, sort of a Max Payne themed Windows Millennium PC. And yeah, it runs great. So I've technically achieved my goal. I was able to build a machine that was fast enough to run Max Payne at the full detail settings at mostly 60 FPS. However, not exactly happy with the outcome. I would have, when I build a machine, I like it to last for a long time. And, I can just pull it out. It's a really nice, fast, low power Windows 9X machine. But unfortunately, there's something wrong with the motherboard. And so, yeah, it's not something I'm going to keep. I'm not going to keep this machine. It's going to be disassembled, unfortunately. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but this is how it goes sometimes. This is really the most frustrating Windows 9X retro PC project I've ever embarked upon, and it's been causing me so much trouble, and even the video editing was an issue because the recording of the installation wasn't going into the editing software. It was just a whole mess. And it took way, way longer to finish this project than I would have liked. And it's still not exactly a satisfactory result. What's going to happen next is I will actually post the entire Max Payne playthrough I've done on my Twitch stream. And I've used the adaptive difficulty fix, and I've played through the whole game on Windows Millennium. And we run into a couple issues throughout the playthrough. You'll see in the whole stream. For the first part, I've used a different microphone than for the second half of it, because at first I played through like maybe an hour worth of the game after installing the machine. So there I used a different mic, so it will sound a bit different when I switch over to the second half of it. By the way, the machine just, before the second half, because there was like maybe a week between the two parts, and before the second half I had to reinstall the machine because for some reason out of the blue it decided that it was going to give me a Windows protection error. So that's nice. So I had to go through Windows ME quick install again and then do all the drivers and everything and then get it up and running. But I was able to finish the game. You'll see the video. And yeah, I'm at the part where I've already disassembled the PC. I've took out the motherboard. I tried a different CPU. I tried a different video card. And the issue still persists. In fact, it was so weird because it sort of did the same thing it did when I first tested this. So I didn't explain this, but before I started putting together the machine, I have done a bit of testing to see if the motherboard's working, and it wasn't giving me any image whatsoever. There was no video output. I tried everything, swapping the memory in and out, cleaning parts, resetting memory, resetting the video card, stuff like that, and it was just like giving me this issue. And then it wasn't giving me any video nor any sounds, like the beeper wasn't going, so that should have been a red flag immediately. But then eventually it sort of started beeping at me, and then it started turning on and I was getting video again. So something on this motherboard might be faulty, like something with the ACPI handling, something on the motherboard is just broken. And in fact, that's sort of the same issue I got when I tested it out of the case. So I just turned it on and it was actually working properly. It had a brief moment of clarity, so to say, because the ACPI things got turned back on. In fact, I was able to just shut down the computer by pressing the button just once. I didn't have to hold it down. So somehow it kind of fixed itself with a different video card. So I thought, oh, hey, it's the video card. But then I tried booting up Windows XP and then it just crashed and then it wouldn't give me any signal anymore again. So the whole ACPI thing broke again. And then probably when it was working for a while, it was probably working in a non-ACPI safety backup mode or something, which was also pretty broken. So yeah, this motherboard is trash, unfortunately. I'm going to have to ditch this whole machine, but I am in the future going to rebuild this because I still want this machine to work out. I still want this this PC to be a nice Windows Millennium PC. Just need a different motherboard, but then that probably means a different CPU and stuff. I don't know what I'm going to put in there yet. I might just end up doing another Pentium 4 machine because I've got loads of those. But we'll see in the future. Yeah, kind of a shame. Sometimes this is how it goes. I don't really have another LGA775 motherboard I would like to use. I've got a couple more, but they don't have PS2 ports on them, and I really want to use PS2 keyboards and mice on my old computers, because that's just sort of how it feels right. I know I could get an adapter, but it's getting all messy, and you know, I'd much rather just use a motherboard that already has them. So yeah, that's gonna be it for now, I guess. So yeah, go check out the next video, which is gonna be the Max Payne playthrough. Like I said, a couple issues throughout the playthrough, but we did get to the end of it, and I hope you enjoyed. And I'll catch you again in the next video. I'm not sure what is gonna be next, but yeah, probably not this Millennium machine right away. Got a couple other things to take care of. So thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.